Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast with your host. I'm Zach Heyer.
And I'm Spencer Maxwell. And Zach, what episode is this?
Spencer, we are on episode number 1, man.
Episode 1, man. We're laying the foundation today.
We sure are. It's exciting. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been a long time coming, but it kind of has, right?
Yeah.
We've done 4 mock
episodes.
Just so that way we can kind of get a feel for the sound, for the video quality, the editing software, everything. So we did a couple episodes with me and you.
Yeah.
We had one with our buddy. So that way we had the 3-person dynamic, and then we had one with the 4 of us. Yeah, with the wives.
Because honestly, man, we just wanted to do, get rid of all the errors and so that we can ultimately bring a good product to those who are listening. If you are listening, we are super grateful that you're here.
Beyond thankful.
And our goal for you is to what?
So the goal of the Blueprint Podcast is we want to motivate you guys, we want to educate, and we want to inspire. Yeah. So how are we going to do those things? I'm a firm believer that people relate to stories.
Yeah.
So we want to do those things and accomplish that through stories of not only Spencer and myself, but we have guests lined up in the business realm that we want to bring on, so that way you guys can hear insights from their stories and their experiences as well. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I think this mission statement is huge because, just like it tells us in scripture, wisdom is more precious than rubies. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do is bring wisdom, tell you where we messed up, tell you our experiences, other like-minded individuals' stories and experiences, so that you guys can grow, as you get started.
Yeah.
So that's a really good mission statement. Those are our goals for you. And then I kind of want to, with this being our first episode, we kind of want to, we're going to be on this journey together. And I want to tell you a little bit about each one of us. And so, Zach, kind of tell me about, it's a business podcast. It's an entrepreneurship podcast. Tell me when your entrepreneurship spirit began, because, now we can zoom out where we're at now, we're at our peaks, but where did it all start? Where was that mindset gained, and kind of going also after that tie into your businesses now today?
Yeah, for sure. So, starting off, I remember definitively, I was 16 years old, man. And it was actually me and my cousin Gavin, one of my best friends. Right. And I remember, we were 16, so we were just kind of getting involved in social media. And at the time, I came across a well-known guy by the name of Grant Cardone. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Grant.
A lot of real estate investors got their start.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then through that, I read the 10X rule.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the first time that it broadened my horizon to what's possible in the different avenues that you can take for career paths. Because where I grew up, I just kind of knew the status quo, right? Mm-hmm. The 9 to 5. You go to school, you get good grades, you want to go to college. Yep, you want to go to college so that way you can get a good job. You get a good job and you work there, loyalty, and you stay there for 30, 40 years, you retire.
Yeah.
And for my personality type, that just doesn't align with who I am and what I want to be. And by reading the 10X rule, it kind of opened my mind to that path.
Yeah.
So that is kind of when it started for me. And I've been working towards that ever since. I haven't always been an entrepreneur. I've been kind of, and we'll get into this a little bit, of beginning with the end in mind, right? And in taking on opportunities and jobs that would ultimately build skill sets and set me up so that way I could be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things of beginning with the end in mind, I went to school. I got my 4-year degree in marketing.
Yeah.
And then I also got my master's degree in business. So I had my MBA. I knew that would kind of like give me the business acumen to, if I wanted to ever start a business someday, kind of lay the foundation from an education standpoint. From there, I got into an opportunity that was presented to me with financial advising, wealth management at Northwestern Mutual. Learned some fantastic skill sets of sales, of finance, of how to manage relationships. From there, flowing into the investment real estate space, I've always kind of had, based up going back to Grant, right? What piqued my interest was having more of a proclivity towards investment real estate.
Yeah.
So moved to Florida, got into investment real estate down there, which was essentially sales, building a portfolio of investors, selling deals to those investors, analyzing some of those deals, things of that sort, and then transitioned into working for a REIT. So running the acquisitions and dispositions for the fund. So for the acquisition side, I ran that for the Dayton metropolitan area. So I would source the deals. I would underwrite the economics of the deals. I would offer, negotiate, contract to close, things of that sort. Did, roughly 220 deals my first year on the buy side. And then ran the acquisition side for Dayton, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh. So was managing brokers. Spencer was one of them for the Dayton area. Had I think like 9 or 10 different agents that I was communicating with that were running the listings for all those different markets. So
talk about building skill sets with all that.
For sure. And then from there, my wife had started a little social media management thing on the side, which was super cool. And in seeing that, and this kind of ties into taking the leap into entrepreneurship, and seeing that there was an insane amount of demand for that.
Yeah.
It was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
So getting to the point to where her and I had the conversation of, hey, I have my degree in marketing.
Yeah.
I have some strengths to your weaknesses, and you have some strengths to my weaknesses. Would it make sense if I jumped in to help you and we kind of took this from a side hustle to an actual business? So I jumped in to help her in August of 2023.
Yeah.
After I kind of got a lay of the land, I was like, there's multiple opportunities here. So the focus is social media management and consulting, but there was other things that we jumped into and turned it into a full-blown marketing agency.
Yeah, right.
So that today, current day, is the Z&T agency, which is one of our businesses with, like I said, a focus in social media management and consulting. We also help with some like business solutions, kind of working as a soundboard to some of these small business owners. Like I said, because I do have my MBA, I have a little bit of experience.
You've been a great sounding board for me.
Yeah. So just talking through some of the business side of things, even outside of social media. And then we also have an extremely talented guy on our team, Grant Furness, that does website building. He does logo packages, branding, style guides, things of that sort.
Yeah.
And he's so talented. He crushes. He's had work displayed in Times Square.
Wow.
He's if any of you ever heard of Sour Strips. It's a candy brand in some of the box stores. So like Target, he created and designed all the logos and packaging for Sour Strips.
Yeah.
And he's we're fortunate enough to have him a part of our team and be able to offer some of those things. So looking to also kind of expand into other things progressively in the upcoming months. But right now that's kind of where the Z&T agency sits. And then we also, me and one of my good buddies are getting into the investment real estate space. So
full circle.
Yeah. Yep. I bring a decent amount of experience to that. So I wanted to go make money for myself versus, another fund. So that's going to be A to Z acquisitions.
Yeah.
And with that, with real estate, investment real estate, there's multiple different exit strategies. So we're going to flip, we're going to buy and hold as rentals, wholesale, multiple different things that we can do. So we're getting that up and rolling. And then obviously we have the Blueprint podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me and my businesses, but enough about me. Want to get in a little bit about you. Ask the same question, Spencer. Like, when did you realize that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? When did that hit you?
Yeah, the more I think about this, it's just kind of like really feeds back to when I was a kid. Just like the lemonade stands in the retail stores where you're selling your own clothes and your worn out shoes.
Yeah.
To my mom out of a closet, kind of thing. And I remember, also too, like selling car washes. I would be out washing cars in the driveway and like trying to collect money. And eventually, I had my mom print out flyers for like a mowing business that, never worked out, try to make Maxwell mowing out of it. So yeah, it started really young and it's just kind of grown. And like you said, you have all these jobs in the meantime where it's like, you really see how like they were just kind of big picture. They were building you, they were
the skill sets,
building the skill sets, thickening your skin for entrepreneurship. So the biggest thing, is just developing those people skills for where I'm at today, but, which is the Maxwell Group, real estate sales. And so we're kind of I'm building the team, of hopefully hiring 2 agents on by the end of the year, 1 within the next month or so. And we have a transaction coordinator as well. And so we're just trying to sell, take care of clients on the list and buy side.
Yeah.
And then also we have Canaan Contractors, which kind of ties into our real estate business. And Steph's helping me run that, my wife. And we help with property maintenance, inspection reports, flips. That's what we run all our flips through. I'm also in investment real estate. We have a couple rentals as well. So yeah, man, that's kind of where we're at. And, and then also the Blueprint podcast as well.
Yeah.
And it just always, as an entrepreneur, I feel like we're always just, we're dreamers. And so it's always just cycling through and you're always throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. You and I know that very well together.
Yeah.
So, and it's really cool to kind of give you guys a rundown, those of you who are listening, because ultimately this is a journey that we're all going to be going on together. Zach and I, plus you, because we want you to stay tuned so that you can feel inspired. And we want to motivate you and we want to educate you so that maybe you can get something started as well. Hopefully one of you hears this and you feel one of those 3 things, and then our goal will be achieved. Yeah. So let's get right into it. So we're naming this episode. It's the first episode. Yeah. So funny enough, the title of this episode is Taking Action. Yep. That is huge in the entrepreneurial realm because that's what a lot of people struggle with. So Taking Action, episode 1, Zach, we put this first and I'm going to put the light on you for a little bit because you always talk about beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, taking action. One of the things that we said is motivating, educating, inspiring, doing that through stories, right? Yeah. So what better way to do it than kind of give our taking action story of the Blueprint podcast? Yeah. And both of us can kind of chime in and talk about this. But Spencer and I, and correct me if I'm wrong, we probably had the original conversation to start a podcast, 2 months ago ish?
It was at the end of 2023, I believe.
Was it the end of 2023?
We're at Winans reviewing the yearly statistics for the Maxwell Group.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I remember where we were sitting, and it was like you were kind of talking about like, what do you want to do in 2024?
Yeah,
and I said, I kind of want to start a podcast.
And I was like, I've been wanting to do the same thing. And okay, so it's been 3 months, right? Oh, okay, it's been. I guess we're almost April, 4 months. But point being, from the time that we had that conversation to when we had the podcast studio built out was about a month and a half. A month and a half. We immediately that day started talking logistics and said, hey, this is something like, are you in? Yeah. Am I in? Yeah. let's do
Let's
it.
go.
Let's go. And dude, I think that day, if not the next day, we started like looking at podcast
we were texting
equipment.
each other.
Yep. Talking through everything. And we just knew that if this is something that we both want to do, we have got to
Take action.
we got to take action. We got to make it happen. Right.
Yeah.
And so within 4 months, we completely redesigned a studio. We built out a studio. We've done all the research on getting a software to launch all these different on all the different platforms. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever, learning the software for that, doing some mock episodes so that way we can make sure that, we're giving you guys, a good product and not our beta testing.
Yeah.
So within 4 months, we've done all those things. And here we are sitting today, April 1st is, hopefully when this thing will air, with the first official episode.
And we didn't care how we started. We just knew we wanted to start.
For sure. Absolutely. And so in that kind of, that's a little bit of the taking action story of the podcast. But as Spencer mentioned, beginning with the end in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that Spencer and I were talking about as we were doing this is we were like, well, what would it take for us to become the top 1% of podcasters? And that was kind of our target, right?
Yeah.
Beginning with the end in mind, we want to ultimately achieve that. We know that that's not going to happen immediately and overnight, but we're going to put in the work to make sure that happens. Well, we did a little bit of research, and to get into the top 1%, it's a little underwhelming, right?
Underwhelming.
So here's a stat for you guys that's a little bit mind blowing and hopefully encouraging for some of you all that may be looking to get into the podcast space. 90% of people quit after 3 episodes. 90% of people quit after 3 episodes.
Insane.
An additional 90% of people quit before they reach 20 episodes.
Yeah.
So 21 episodes is the mark to become the top 1% of podcasters. A little under
21 episodes.
21 episodes, right? So breaking that down, and we'll kind of get into this as well, of setting goals, reverse engineering those goals. So it is our objective to bring you guys one newly recorded podcast episode a week.
Yep.
So assuming that we are already to April, right?
Yeah.
It's our goal to, at minimum, bring you guys 30 episodes the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself would put us in the top 1% because we've just done the work, right?
Yeah.
We're staying consistent. So that's our goal. And we honestly, we talked about this a little bit. Do we want to say that? Like, do we want to put that on air?
No, we
right?
do. Yeah. We want to be held accountable.
Because that's going to hold, exactly. It's going to hold us accountable.
Yeah.
Because we've put this out there that we're going to put out 30 episodes this year. And if we don't, you all know that we're lying.
Business owners, do you know the value of creating a strong brand and realize social media is one of the best ways to do it, but don't have the time to stay consistent or know where to start? Do you need a modern website or an eye-catching logo? You only get one first impression and you've got to make it count. No matter if you're looking for a website, a logo package, or if you need a professional to craft and implement a custom social media strategy to create a recognizable brand and drive sales, the Z&T agency has got you covered. Odds are you've probably been thinking about these things to some degree, but didn't know a solution. Or maybe this is all new to you and you're interested in hearing more. Either way, we'd love to talk to you. Reach out to zach.hire@theztagency.com to book your consultation call today.
So,
it's crazy that 90% of people that start a podcast don't make it to episode 4. They quit after episode 3. And then another 90% never make it past 20. And I think I kind of know why, because it's like you and I have talked about the analogy of the bamboo tree.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to water this thing
Yeah.
for 5 years
Yeah.
and not see it grow above the ground.
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden after that, it grows to 90 feet in 9 weeks, but you have to be willing to put in that work even when it's not pretty. And that's what we talk about. Just do the work.
Just do the work.
Just take the action and do it and stay consistent and stay diligent.
For sure.
But a lot of people get in, they get scared or they get discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
when they don't see the fruits of their labor right away. It's a long-term game.
Well, I think that they put the emphasis on the wrong things, right? They don't put the emphasis on the things that they can control,
Yeah.
and they don't put the emphasis on doing the work. They put the emphasis on the result. So, if we put this podcast out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be realistic. This is our first episode starting from scratch.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to blow up episode number 1.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are chasing the viral results. They're chasing the likes. They're chasing the, the shares, things of that
The
sort.
instant gratification.
The instant gratification. And when they don't see that immediate feedback, they're like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
This doesn't work.
Yeah.
Versus your focus is on doing the work. So what can we control? We can control when we put out episodes,
Yeah.
right? And we can control how many episodes that we put out.
Yeah.
And if done over a long enough time horizon, naturally, unless we just suck
Yeah.
and are bad at
Yeah.
it, which we're going to work hard to
Yeah.
make sure that we're not,
Yeah.
and give you a good product. But if we do the work, naturally, it will grow.
Yeah.
Right. So over a long enough time horizon, I mean, you hear countless of these either influencers or podcasters or YouTubers talk about like, and you guys will hear me reference him a lot, but Alex Hormozy. I mean, I think that he was talking about how he was putting out episodes for like 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
before he got any traction, right?
Yeah.
Why is he where he's at today? Why wasn't he a part of
He still showed up.
he showed up and his focus was on the work.
Yeah.
So I think that's why that is so important.
Yeah. It's tough to stay encouraged
It is.
through those tough seasons. But I mean, the ability to stay encouraged within yourself is tough. I will say that is a
Mhm.
struggle. And it's something that you and I have had to build.
Yeah.
That is, it's quite like a muscle that you have to constantly work.
Yeah.
So like, we talk about entrepreneurship spirit,
Mhm.
right? I tried to start Maxwell Mowing, Lord knows when,
Yeah.
and it just never, but you got to keep, I wasn't diligent with it. I wasn't encouraged. I got discouraged really quick, and you have to stay with it. And so it's a muscle that's built over time, to where you can just, the ability to jump in, to take a leap of faith and trust that you have thick enough skin and that you're going to continue to show up, that you're going to continue to put in the work,
Mhm.
and that you will see the fruits of your labor eventually, but you might have to sit in color for a while.
Absolutely. And I think that it's like, it comes down to discipline,
Yeah.
right? Of not acting on emotion, not
Yeah.
acting on a feeling of, do I feel like it or do I not feel like it? Because some days you are going to be on top of the world feeling like you can conquer everything. Some days you're going to feel like I can't do anything. I don't feel like getting out of bed. Right.
Yeah.
And if you were to base your actions off of how you felt, nothing would ever get accomplished.
That's huge.
You have to have a discipline that no matter how I feel, I'm willing to do what is necessary.
Yeah. Steph talks about all the time. And I love when she says this. It's the feeling versus the knowing.
Yeah.
You have to know what it requires in order to get there. So like, in order to get, past that stage, and, when we talk about taking action, we don't just want to say, there isn't, a lot of people get caught up in the analysis paralysis side of things. So,
100%.
even sometimes I will,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to sometimes, like we say a lot too, is just start ugly.
Yeah.
Just take the action. Analysis paralysis. We have a fun statistic on this too. Analysis paralysis. Zach,
Yeah.
give us the statistic.
So this was shocking to me. Of the people who have seriously considered or have a business idea,
Yeah.
92% of them will never take action.
Yeah.
Only 8% of people will take action. And that's why it's so important, right? But also that whatever way you look at it, that could be encouraging or discouraging.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to take it from the approach of extremely encouraging.
Yeah.
Right? Why do I say that? Because that means that I'm only competing against 8% of people.
That's how I take it.
I'm only competing against 8% of people, man. And it's an abundance mentality, right? There's enough out there for all of us to be successful and to achieve what we want to achieve. But dude, that's just helping my odds. You know what I mean? If 92% of people straight off the bat are eliminated.
What do we call the 92%?
I don't know, Spencer. What do we call them?
I like it. I actually first heard the term from Zach, but it's we call the 92% entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Which might offend some people, but man, it's like
the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's the reality of it. There are entrepreneurs and there are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
There's the people that just talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
And this might be a little bit of controversial, but I mean, I think so many people think that they're making progress because they're reading the business books. They're listening to the podcast. They're, doing some of the things of like talking about it, discussing it, but they never do what's required to take the first step.
Yeah.
They never take the first step. Right. So, I mean, you can talk about it all day long, but until you be about it, you will never accomplish what you want.
The be about it can be so ugly.
It can be so ugly.
Which is why I think a lot of people, hence the analysis paralysis. The be about it can be a very ugly season. It's like jumping from a stable salary like I did to jumping straight into commission only.
Yeah.
But then just like, hey, grind it out and you're not going to really see good money for another 3 years.
People aren't willing to make that sacrifice.
Right. Or people can't make the sacrifice money-wise. You have to live.
True.
But, ultimately, I am very grateful that I had the opportunity to be able to dive into the deep end. And I didn't really get caught up in too much analysis paralysis. I'm one of those guys, and I know you are too, to where it's like, hey, just throw me in the deep end and it's sink or swim. And I guarantee you I'm swimming.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out.
And you just figure it out. And that's why we always say start ugly, man. I know we say it a lot, but I mean, it's so relative.
And I mean, just starting, I genuinely think that like the most education or experience that you can get is from doing.
Yes.
Like, yes, there is 1,000% a place for reading the books and listening to mentors and podcasts and courses and things of that sort. 100, because I personally have benefited from those things.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely important. But if you don't couple that with actually taking the action, like you'll never achieve what you want to achieve. And I think that's just kind of getting into of like, even from the books and the podcasts and stuff, like you won't get half of what you get from real world experience of doing it, where like, hey, I can read a book on sales, right? I can read all that kind of stuff, but until I'm client facing and they're kind of giving me objections and I'm having to kind of go through that and overcome and kind of do what's required, not unethically, but just kind of walk them to the solution of why this does make sense for you.
Yeah.
Like, no book will ever teach you that.
No.
Right. I mean, you have to go out and you have to do that. Right. no, I mean, books can give you an outline, but until you go out and you set a company and lay the foundation to where, hey, I need to go hire my first employee. Like, books can tell you what to look for, but I got to go do it. And you learn so much more throughout that process, right?
Yeah.
So I think that both in tandem are a great thing,
Yeah.
but the key is both in tandem,
Yeah.
right? Because without the doing, the books are irrelevant.
It's the books, the videos, the podcasts. It's good general knowledge. Ultimately, you dive a lot deeper in the doing. Like flipping houses.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of videos.
HGTV, man.
Right, HGTV. Watched a lot of HGTV. Watched a lot of videos. Read a lot about that stuff. You can run the numbers all you want, and it's nerve wracking, and that's very easily when you have big numbers in front of you, it's easy to get into analysis paralysis. But ultimately, like, I grew exponentially when I just did that first flip, and it was scary. I was dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars with somebody else's money, but ultimately we figured it out. We had good relationships and a good network, and ultimately it all worked out.
Right.
And looking at that season of 4 months during that flip, the amount that I learned,
Yeah.
and it was just by doing, and now it's just second nature. It's a muscle
Right.
that you just have. It's muscle memory. So the act of doing and sitting in that season of like just figuring it out is more valuable than you can ever imagine.
Right.
And that's where you need to just take the action.
Which I do want to make a disclaimer. With the taking the action, like, we're not saying be reckless
No,
with
no,
it,
no.
right? Taking action methodically.
Yes.
Right. Like, we're not just saying I have no experience in, the medical field.
Yeah.
None. And now I need to go like start a dental practice. Obviously that's a stupid extreme example, but like, you have to do a little bit like of risk mitigation prior to taking action. Like, you don't want to just be stupid about it, but once you get to a point to where you feel like you've kind of hit the edge of knowledge that you have acquired versus taking that step, that's what you kind of have to take the step. And one of the things that we talked about in one of the mock episodes was about the value in mentorship, right?
Yeah.
So with flipping your first house, I'm not sure, but you probably had somebody to ask questions and kind of guide you through the process.
I asked a lot of questions from a lot of people.
Exactly.
Seeking wisdom.
And that's why I think taking action, if you can also take the action on finding good mentors, that's extremely important to your success journey as well.
Yeah. If you're wanting to start something, no matter what that is, whoever's listening, if you have an idea for a coffee business, a bakery, lotion, whatever, seek mentorship from somebody. Find out where they messed up.
Absolutely.
That's what I love doing. I love, talking to wiser, older people when it comes to marriage, faith, business. Hey, where did you mess up?
Yeah.
And then ultimately implying that.
What's the saying? A dumb person will make a mistake and continue to make that same mistake. A smart person
learns from their mistakes.
Will make a mistake, learn from the mistake, and not make it again.
Yeah.
A wise person will watch somebody else's mistakes and avoid it altogether.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So kind of going into that. And that's where leveraging mentors, being that wise person and looking and saying, hey, they are now where I strive and ultimately want to be, right? But they probably had successes and failures along the way. They not probably, they did. It's inevitable, right? So being able to have that conversation with, hey, you were doing this. What are some of the potholes that I need to look out for, right? And I feel like not everybody, but I feel like a lot of successful people, if you are showing that you're a young, hungry individual, they're willing to like talk things through with you, right? Because odds are they probably see a little bit of themselves in you at a younger stage.
Yeah.
Right. So, in order to get these mentors, you can't just show up and do nothing. You have to provide value to them.
Yeah.
For sure. But once you've done that, that could be a great launching pad for you to kind of avoid some very difficult failures.
Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest? Be sure to use a Maxwell Group at NavX Realty, where your dream is our passion. The Maxwell Group takes pride in client relationships and experiences. We utilize our knowledge, our love for the industry, and our extensive network to handle your life's biggest investment. Call or text Spencer Maxwell at 937-572-5382.
Yeah, and I like that you made the whole disclaimer, because we don't want the message to get twisted of like, hey, just start ugly and go in guns blazing. No, like we're just saying just start, but seek wisdom, seek good mentorship. Also, another good point that we want to talk about is the value of setting goals, right? And so once again, we can begin with the end in mind, but the value of setting goals.
Yeah.
And we got another statistic for you. Setting goals, 76% of people, who write down their goals and make them plain, just like it tells us to in scripture, 76% of those people obtain that goal, compared to a whopping 33% who don't write them down, obtain it. That's a difference of 43%.
That's crazy. Just by writing it down.
Just by writing down your goals, you have 43% more chance of achieving your goals,
so
just for writing them down.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the accountability.
I was kind of thinking that too.
I think that it's the accountability, and I think seeing is believing. It's tangible when you write it down. Vision boards, right? I think when you have something tangible, it's a lot more obtainable.
Right.
And then ultimately the accountability partner. Like you and I were great accountability partners. I would also say, find an accountability partner.
Very important.
Somebody who has the same spirit, same mindset. Find somebody who shares that with you.
And an accountability partner that isn't going to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
Right. And so, ultimately, disclaimer, we don't want you to just go in guns blazing. Seek wisdom. Think with the end in mind, and set your goals. For instance, as a realtor, it's like, all right, you want to make 80 to 90,000, you got to sell 4 million, in the calendar year at 3% commission. That's 23 transactions. That's 2 a month.
Right.
You got to make 100 phone calls at a 2% conversion rate, to get your 2 deals a month. That is 25 phone calls a week. That is 5 phone calls a day.
And I think that that's the power of reverse engineering goals in taking big, like intimidating goals and breaking them down practically to what you can do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think that that's the key, because when psychology, human nature, when you set lofty goals or like annual goals or semi-annual goals, like those are large targets, right? And at times large targets can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
And if you take those and you break them down to what you can do on a month-to-month basis, week-to-week basis, day-to-day basis, hourly basis,
to hour,
you know what I mean? It takes that big lofty thing and makes it really concise. So kind of like what you were talking about with the realtor thing. If I want to sell, 4 or 5 million in volume, right? That means today I got to make 40 phone calls.
Yeah.
Right. Now that takes that 5 million annually of the amount of money that I want to make. And it shows me the action step that I can take right now to make sure that I start taking steps towards that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And that applies to anybody, but you need to write down your goals and definitely reverse engineer, take away the intimidation factor.
Yep.
But once again, disclaimer also on the other side, don't get analysis paralysis over this.
Yeah.
Just get going, get started. That could be with a coffee shop. Once again, break down, like, you want a brick and mortar by the end of the year, or do you just want to sell bags every day? Kind of like that thing. So if you want a brick and mortar, break down, the price per square foot and all that stuff and your profit and loss. Break it down in reverse, get that going. So we kind of want to also talk about, Zach, is, we've talked about how this is like a muscle memory, taking action, but we have a really good quote here from Hormozy, right? This is our guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love, yeah, he brings so much value. And one of the big things, that he has said, and I think that it comes from Layla, his wife, actually. I think that he said that it came from her. But in taking the action, doing the things, fear looks like an endless ocean. But once you take the jump, you realize that it's a mile wide, but an inch deep.
Yeah.
Where you think that you're going to drown,
Yeah.
you're really just going to get a little wet.
Yeah.
And you would never know that unless you took the jump. Now, that's not to say that there isn't going to be things that are a lot more difficult and more painful than what you think. But overall, I think that we have a tendency to work these things up in our minds to be much worse than what they are.
And that's where you get the 92%.
And that's where you get the 92%.
Yeah.
100%.
Only the 8% are willing to look into that ocean and take that leap.
Absolutely. And then once they do take the leap, they realize, hey, maybe this wasn't as bad as what I made it out to be.
Yeah.
Because we can get in our head
Yeah.
a ton. I know I absolutely
Yeah.
can. And you just got to push past that resistance in that voice in your head that's saying, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
You got to take control of that and really take the leap of faith.
And then one of our favorite words is just grit. Man, it's like,
Grit.
when you do encounter the deeper parts of that ocean, it's not always just going to be an inch deep.
Yep.
When you do encounter that, just continue to push through and don't become the 8%. Stick with it. And so I guess, that's all really good. We gave you guys some good statistics. We want to leave you with some encouragement.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So like tips. Zach, you got number one, because this is your favorite.
Yeah. So we're beating a dead horse a little bit here throughout this
Yeah.
episode, but beginning with the end in mind, right? Now, let's actually kind of break that down into what that looks like. So, super cliche analogy, but it rings true of if I'm heading on a road trip, if I'm hopping on a flight and I don't have my final destination, how in the world am I ever going to know where to go?
Yeah.
You have no idea,
Yeah.
right? The same applies to life. The same applies to business, relationships. It's applicable to everything.
Yeah.
But for today's sense in business, you need to know where you're going. So that way, from the jump, you can make moves and set yourself up for the ultimate destination.
Yeah.
Give you an example. So for the Z&T agency, we realize that we don't necessarily always want to work in the business. We want to work on the business.
Yeah.
Right. So we had to bootstrap it and build the agency from the ground up ourselves.
Yeah.
Because one, we also needed to learn the ropes. We needed to know what questions to ask, how to operate, all the tips and tricks, things of that sort. So that way we could build a business, right? But our objective with it is we ultimately want to begin to hire.
Yeah.
And we are starting to have those conversations, but we want to hire. And ultimately, I don't know if we will, but something that could be on the table is building the agency enough to exit.
Yeah.
So, or what do I mean by exit? Sell off to another buyer, whether
Yeah.
that's private equity or just another individual or group of people that are wanting to buy a good cash flowing business. That would be something that, could possibly be on the
Yeah.
table. So what do we need to do? Obviously, we need to start incorporating value in terms of hiring people and taking that step by step to where
Yeah.
maybe we could eventually build out a leadership team to where the business operates without Tawny.
Yeah, you're building systems and infrastructure ultimately to where you can have that exit strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah, long term
Long
goals.
term.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
And you're
I'm-
doing that today
and
for 10 years from now.
exactly. And we're doing that now to set up for then.
Yeah.
Now, that would never be a possibility if we get in and in 10 years, I'm like, man, I am sick of working in this business.
Yep.
I want to be, it's either the business just completely shuts down or we keep going. There's
Yeah.
really no other avenue at that point because you haven't built it in a way that you can exit. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why it's extremely important to know where you're going. So that way you can start that way today.
Yeah. And that ties into tip number 2.
Yep.
Once again, Zach just talked about beginning with the end in mind. And tip number 2 is set those goals. Once again, the difference is astounding. The 76% versus the 33%. So go on the higher part of that. Write down your goals. Reverse engineer those goals. Right? You want to sell off in 10 years? This is what we have to do every year, every month, every week, every day.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we have to do to get there. And then stay diligent with that. And then that kind of, that ultimately feeds into tip number 3, which is just do the work.
Just do the work.
Begin with the end in mind. Write down your goals, reverse engineer, and then just do the work.
Yeah. Focus on what you can control, right?
Yes.
You can't, in relating this back to us, we can't control the amount of people that subscribe, that share the videos, the views that we get on the videos, the virality of the videos.
Yeah.
We can't control any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But what we can control is our consistency in showing up
Yep.
and doing the work.
Control our effort.
Yep. And another Hormozy thing, sorry, you guys are going to get a lot of that because talking about mentors,
Yeah.
I don't know the guy. He doesn't have a clue who I am, but he's been a mentor of mine through, his different content,
Yeah.
through the books, through the
Mhm.
podcast that I listen
Yep.
to. He's fantastic. But the work works on you more than you work on it.
Yeah.
So by you doing the work, it's going to work on you to build the characteristics of the man or woman that you want to be.
Yeah. And just doing the work sharpens your skills to continue to climb the ladder,
Absolutely.
because you have to gain so many new skills if you want to continue to climb the ladder, but you can't climb the ladder if you just don't grind it out. And that's what a
1000%.
lot of people struggle with.
So Spencer, I feel like, man, we could talk about this
We could.
for a while. So we got to shut off somewhere. But we want to leave you with a couple things.
Yeah.
Spencer, you want to?
Yeah. So we all, Zach and I, we love the Lord. And so we always want to leave with a bit of scripture. So today, this is very relative. Proverbs 10:4, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. And this ties all back into what we just spoke about. So
Boom.
we're leaving you with Proverbs 10:4.
Sounds great. Well, make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
See you next time, everybody.